Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak, and the hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. In my company, 5 lawyers this morning here on this special edition of The Bench here on Daybreak. On my far right is Chatia Eboyele, who is an advocate of the High Court. Good morning.
Good morning.
Your time is appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Many thanks for your time.
Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. We also have Muthoni Gashora, who is an advocate, also a candidate for Nairobi Rep, joins us this morning here on the broadcast. Good morning.
Good morning, and
Many
thank you for having me here.
Appreciated. And Anne Otieno is an advocate of the High Court, joins us also here on the set this morning. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning.
Lovely having you here on the broadcast.
Happy to be here too.
Asante. Halima Ali is an advocate of the High Court, also a candidate for Nairobi Rep ahead of the elections on the 19th. Good morning.
Good morning, Ayub.
Lovely having you here. And Jared Mugendi is also an advocate, joins us this morning. Jared, good morning.
Good morning to you, Ayub.
Appreciated. And so let's begin. A lot of grounds to cover here given. But first, let's start with the state of practice in the country before we dive deeper into some of the finer details and the nitty-gritty details of the profession. Let's begin, Jared, with you first. Other than the election, which is a cycle that comes and goes ideally, there should be an understanding, is it, of the core function of the LSK and the pointer or compass towards good governance and principles of proper rule of law and constitutionalism in the country. Are we heading in that direction?
Good morning, and thank you for that question. Let me first begin by saying that the mandate of the Law Society is statutory. So it is not out of the blue that the Law Society exists.
Yeah.
And being a professional body, the nature of our work that is most prominent to members of the public is when we are fighting human rights matters in courts. So in constitutional and human rights division is busy. Yeah. That's where we see the Law Society more often. So I am pretty sure a lot of Kenyans will be mistaken to think the Law Society is the current opposition in Kenya. So that is not primarily the work. If you look at Section 4, actually one of the first provisos there is that we are supposed to assist the government in administration of justice. Yeah. So not just opposing or critiquing, because you can also critique positively and negatively. So, of course, with the current council, they have truly risen to the occasion in terms of elevating the bar from where it was, reduced the boardroom wrangles, restored the image of the bar that perhaps most Kenyans are familiar with. Yeah. But there is still a lot to be done because, like I said, it's not the only job that we do. As lawyers, we're supposed to help even in matters legislation. Yeah. We're supposed to ensure that as people receive services, the lawyers themselves are competent. If there's a dispute between an attorney and a client, that it is handled efficiently. No. So those are core issues that fall into the broader matrix so that the Law Society inevitably looks as if it's part of the larger political system. Yeah. But of course, we have a constitutional democracy where anytime you mention law, liberties, a lawyer will have to show up at some point. So whether we have lived up to the mandate, I think has been cyclical, depending on the council that has been in office. Okay. I mean, we've seen presidents being kicked out before the end of their term. The nature of our office is when you're a president, you only serve for one term, that is 2 years. So it's a very difficult job that you can't go there if you don't know what you're doing, okay, or you have not laid out your agenda properly. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Before I come to the two candidates, and to you, how defining is this forthcoming election? And in your view, has the LSK lived up to the expectations of the public? Is it fit for purpose in today's Kenya?
Thank you for your question, Ayub. And in my view, this election is very important not just for advocates but also for the public at large, for the fact that we are going into an election season, and given what we have seen as far back as 2024 during Maandamano to the run up to this particular time, because then that is when a lot of Kenyans got to know the muscle of LSK as a society. And I think it is important who we get as the president of the LSK, because then, as my fellow speaker has said, Jared has said, it's very important. One of the mandates of LSK is to protect the public as well. Yes, there's the advocates bit, but there's also the public. And I think it's a very important point that it's very important that we get the right person for the job. And to the second question, has LSK lived up to this mandate? I will say yes, under the leadership of Madam Faith Odhiambo. I believe that it has come a really long way. And even from the comments that we see on social media platforms, the LSK has done a fantastic job.
Okay, Tatia?
Yes. On the same question, yes. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I think we need to understand that LSK grapples over two issues. One, being the conscience of the nation, and two, being a service provider. When you look at the LSK Section 4, the Act itself provides that wholesome view of the LSK providing support for the government, one, and number two, the welfare of the advocate himself, an inclusive, continuous professional development, and also continuous professional development in regards to the education of the advocate. And so would I say that the council that has been able to live it to its standard? I would say yes. But the question that we will ask ourselves would be, which environment does an LSK council find itself? Because when you look at the history of LSK, from when the ordinance in 1948, you will see that there were different environments. In 1948, at that time, Kenyans were not sitting in that particular council. But then all the way up to 1963, we see Kenyans coming into it. But then what kind of environment were we having at that particular time? We were looking at a different dispensation. We are looking at fighting for the country. We are looking at legislative agendas. We are looking at multi-party democracy. And so you will understand that LSK operates within the environment that it is. So the council that was found itself in an environment of Maandamano. 2024, the clamor for the youth bill that the former president was talking about, found itself in that place. And you see, there's no other way that they would have been able to cure that issue than just try and dive in and try and assist. And so I would say that Madam Faith really was able to steer the LSK towards being able to help the public in regards to that particular area. And so I will say that I will give a big up to Madam Faith, and there are big shoes that to be filled. And
we'll expound more on the environment, because there has been growing tendency of anathema towards constitutionalism, the rule of law and good governance since Katiba's promulgation in 2010, and welfare as well. But to you, Muthoni, given that you and Halima are candidates, how are you looking into this elections first as a member of the lobbyist group, as well as a candidate who is seeking a position in the elections?
Thank you very much for your question. I must say that, just as my colleagues have said, this election is very defining, since that we are going to the 2027 election. And I keep telling my colleagues, we need a council that is going to be able to be firm, a council that is going to stand with the rule of law and constitutionalism, a council that is not going to be pushed left, right, and center. And therefore, I say that it's a defining moment for us as members of LSK to vote for a president and a council that is going to steer us to the right direction. And just like my fellow colleagues have said, let us give flowers where they need to be given. Faith and her council, they've done a good job. They've steered us to the right direction. And with a good council, I believe we'll continue going back to the old days where as a young girl, I'd sit and just look at my senior, Paul Moite and the rest when they were presidents, and I'll say, I want to be in that society because they are doing the right thing, they are standing for the rule of law and constitutionalism.
Okay. And Halima, what pulls you into the ring, and how defining is the 19th of this month, next month, when the elections will be happening?
Thank you, Ayub, for that question. And I actually like the topic, the theme of this event, the state of practice. As my colleagues have spoken to, the LSK, other than the functions of the rule of law, which we have done so marvelously, is also a service provider to its members. And there's a saying that goes that if you are in the plane and there's turbulence or any issue, you're told, put on the mask first before you actually help the person that is next to you. This election is defining in the sense that advocates are now saying, first of all, ourselves, we are facing a lot of issues. The infrastructure for practice is facing a lot of challenges. And what we are saying is, we want a thriving environment. We want members who are secured before we also attend to any other issues. The practice terrain is changing. Whether you are a young advocate, whether you are a mid-bar, whether you are a senior, we are at a point where we are seated and asking, what is this infrastructure that we are relying on, the system that is helping us to dispense with our core functions? What is the status of this infrastructure? Is it an impediment or is it facilitative? Now, here we are. You come from law school, you join the market, you have a knowledge and you want to monetize your skill. You rely on system that helps you to dispense with the assignment in your hand. And advocates are saying, whether it is the court user, whether it is the department that you're using, we feel frustrated. And we want leadership that will sit down and look at the train of practice, whether it is invasion from others who are not supposed to be in this space, or the very infrastructure that is not facilitative. It is high time for us to sit down and make sure that the practice space is enabling. It's a space where the advocate can wake up and put in an effort, and that effort is rewarded because it is efficient system that works for us.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And Jared, fundamental points raised by the two candidates here.
Yes.
Let's begin with the welfare question. For example, we have in the past 2 years seen the avalanche of cases, public interest petitions filed by the LSK and other parties because of the events and the circumstances that had dotted 2024 and 2025. But are also young advocates given the ability to push some of these cases in courts, or as she mentions, does that hierarchy of junior, fresh from law school, the mid-practicing lawyers and the seniors, does that classification also bar young advocates from taking up cases that are momentous in pushing for good public discourse?
Thank you for that. Let me start by saying if there is one profession where everybody assumes they know their job better than you, even the shoe shiner, is the legal profession. Because you'll hear comments like, it's just English, you know. And I even heard at some point, the late Honorable Prime Minister said, these lawyers, this is too much English. The following month, he was surrounded by a battery of lawyers to handle his appeal. I mean, I'm sure it was humorous for the moment, but just to show that the work we do, a lot of people assume they can also do it. But here's the flip side. The citizenry, just the same way the lawyers feel that there's a hierarchy, the citizens also may tend to look at lawyers in the same hierarchy that they face in the same profession. So a client will look at you and look, I think you have a baby face, you are not old enough to handle this profession.
Okay.
It doesn't matter how qualified you are. So they will feel safer if there is a senior lawyer next to you,
Okay.
which is not the case. Because like my sister Lima said, the practice has shifted so significantly such that we have emerging areas of practice that are even being litigated in courts, like the Facebook cases, the AI cases, the WhatsApp cases that now you can have a WhatsApp in a contract, which by and large, most of the seniors may not be able to grasp the issues.
Yeah.
So that bias becomes useless in the face of such changes. Okay. Because the most prominent things we see are the constitutional petitions. Is it yesterday? One of the constitutional petitions challenging the removal of the JSC commissioner was filed by a young attorney.
Yeah.
I think he's 4 or 5 years in practice, Eric Morioki. When I was about 3 years in practice, I had an opportunity to be part of the team that represented President William Ruto in the Supreme Court election. So sometimes it's a matter of circumstances and where you're placed. Okay. And we've seen the current society, like we said, we are giving credit, that they have given some of the most prominent cases to a battery of young lawyers. Yeah. Like the Masengeli case was primarily handled by a battery of young lawyers. We had a lot of contempt cases that have emerged recently, have been left at the hands of young lawyers who have not let us down, including the ANC UDA dispute. Yeah. It was handled by Tali. I think he's 2-3 years in practice. Yeah. So the litmus test then does not become age. And that is what we mistreat, we will misdiagnose. Okay. The litmus test then becomes competence. Okay. That when we entrusted this category of people to do this particular kind of job, they delivered. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And your hand is up, yes, and then I'll come to you, Halima.
Right. If I'm just to weigh in on what Jared is saying, I remember there's the Nuru Okanga case. It was handled by Honorable Babu Owino, and he was surrounded by very young lawyers. Babu Owino, exactly, he's also a young lawyer. Yeah. He's actually, in fact, he's my junior, yes. And I was admitted in 2024. Yes. One of the advocates, he was in that case with his one Oruko Were, who was admitted the same time as me. One thing that I would urge the public to do is trust these young lawyers, because most of them, this is not their first degree. The gentleman I just mentioned, this is his second degree, and he's an IT expert. He knows more about IT than even, because I looked at the cross-examination questions he was asking the police officer, which he was unable to answer. So this is someone, most of these young advocates, they're young in practice, yes, but not young in age.
Yeah, okay. And also in competence.
Exactly.
Yes, Halima, your hand was up. I'll come to you. And okay.
Yeah, Ayub, thank you. When we speak about the issue of infrastructure, this is what we mean. It's less to do with the aspect of whether you're a senior or a junior. We are talking about the platform we use as advocates. Yeah? And this means that there are issues we are not speaking about openly. If you are a user of any department, and for you to get services, there are preconditions. For example, if I was a doctor and I sent a patient to the lab, and the lab technician is saying, you have to abide by this condition for me to release the result. Yeah. You know how ridiculous that sounds. Mm-hmm. We are at crossroads. And this is what we are fighting 3 factors. 1, you've opened an office as an advocate. And in the first place, for you to actually get a brief, the practice space has shrunk, and you're competing with people who have not spent 6 years sharpening their crafts to get the brief. You got the brief, and you have someone who is not qualified enough, or qualified but for whatever reasons is charging the client what we call undercutting, certain amounts that are not sufficient for you to dispense with the assignment you're given. You get this assignment, and you go to spaces that help you to dispense with this, whether it is the court, a department within the government, or any other offices, and you're facing a hurdle. Advocates are frustrated. And what we want, it is not easy for me to speak as an individual advocate about this, because one will feel, okay, am I being targeted? Will I be witch hunted? But there are systemic failures that individual advocates cannot talk about. LSK, as an institution for lawyers, can do it on their behalf so that we all flourish. Secondly, the practice space is changing in the sense that our society is also changing. There are emerging sectors of the law. Myself, I'm in the energy and natural resource sector. And that is why in my manifesto, one of the things I am speaking about is, other than the traditional practice, there are alternative pathways. There are emerging sectors. These emerging sectors will not only give you an alternative option, but they also position you for what we call global practice, multi-jurisdictional practice. There are advocates who are from Kenya, but today they are in Zambia, Congo, and Southern Africa, executing energy deals. Yeah?
Okay.
Where is LSK in this? LSK should be a platform or a hub that brings the advocates together, that a young lawyer can actually sit down, write an email, and express an interest in an emerging sector, and there's a tailor-made event and sector engagement for them to actually venture into this.
Yeah.
Ayub, I'm sure you heard this, that we are over 25,000. Each year, we are admitting thousands of young advocates. Will we all be in this practice space, the traditional practice? Or should LSK institution be the platform that actually facilitates every advocate wherever they want to be?
And Muthoni, I'll come to you, Edwin. Allow me to come to Muthoni as well. Certainly a lot of institutional changes is what you envision as a young advocate. What's then the specific and immediate change? They talked about infrastructure, you talked about environment of practice. However, what then in your view should be fixed immediately that can remedy the current state of practice?
Okay, thank you very much, Ayub. So one of the things that I have also been talking about in my manifesto is I feel like branches need to be empowered. The Law Society of Kenya has 8 branches, and one of the things that having served at the branch I appreciate is that the branches need more money, and when they have more money, you'll see in the state of practice, our bread and butter is very important. And as we are at now, you find that there are many people who are masquerading into our system, right? And so one of the things I wish and want to push for is that there are resources so that we have the branches dealing with this aspect of masquerading. And even as we are pushing to other emerging areas of practice, like my colleague talked about, and we are empowering young advocates to see whether they can go into arbitration, mediation, and other areas of practice, like what she is doing, the oil and gas. And for instance, we now have AI with us. I am very passionate about that as well. So I feel the aspect of masqueraders should be taken very seriously, and if we empower the branches by giving them the resources that they need, then we will be able to have pushed the practice ahead even as we deal with these other things. And also, just to mention, we said we are giving flowers where they are due. The outgoing council has done a very good job with the advocates' remuneration order, which I also believe it's going to help with the state of practice, even as we wait for the same to be gazetted. Thank you.
Learned friends, I'll come to you when we get back from the break. We have an hour.
Okay.
to go through a lot, including the conduct by non-lawyers. She pointed out the masqueraders, the empowerment of the branches, which still dovetails to the question of welfare, as well as the environment of operation, which is at times toxic and politically polluted. Given the circumstances that we live in, whether the political establishment subscribes to the culture of good governance and constitutionalism, the rule of law, and what the implementation of our current Katiba means then for the country. And those submissions will be coming here after the break. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. We are back with more after this short commercial break. Stay with us.